to understand that all these two-step equations that we've been solving, now granted in just the regular old run-of-the-mill worksheet that you've been doing, there's not a lot of meaning there, right? So it was kind of important, I felt, to make sure that you guys have an understanding that people actually legit use this stuff in real life. Scientists, for example, use equations all the time in order to make predictions about things that are actually going to happen. We're going to use a couple of relatively non-scientific examples because these are topics that are kind of more relevant to you guys, okay? So, and what I mean by that is example number 1 here, which I'm going to kind of zoom in on a little bit. So you want to improve your grade by earning an A on your next test, and you're trying to figure out how long you need to study, okay? Now, we all know those freaks of nature who get good grades whether they study or not. I hate those people. They make me very jealous. I don't really hate those people, but you know what I mean. But for the most part, the more you study, the higher your grade is going to be, right? But let's just say you don't necessarily want to overdo it. You want to get a more precise estimate of how much you really need to study in order to get the grade that you want. So this is actually real data that a previous student of mine did, where he actually interviewed a few of his peers after an assessment and asked them 2 things. He asked them what their test score was, and then he asked them how many hours they studied in order to earn that test score, in order to make a prediction, because if you ask enough people, right, like you've got enough that you can make a pretty decent prediction. This is just a small sample of all the people that he actually, asked that information for. Now, there's a term that technically we should know from middle school, but we all know middle school is a hot mess for some of us the last couple of years. So that's why we should definitely, review this. Does the word dependent variable mean anything to you? Okay, so the grade in this case, your test score, is your dependent variable because that test score depends on how long you study. If the grade is the dependent variable, that means the amount of time you study is the independent variable. So we have a natural experiment here, basically. If you take each, the other thing I forgot to mention, we always use the variable y to represent the dependent variable, and x is used to represent the independent variable. The way I used to keep that straight whenever I was a kid in school is that the independent variable has to happen first because it's what impacts the dependent variable. What comes in the alphabet first? X, right? So that's how you can keep straight that x is your independent variable. That's what has to happen first for y, your dependent variable, in order for it to, because it depends, the grade depends on how much you study, all right? So you can actually take, does this little plot look familiar from middle school at all? I know it was a hot mess for some of us last year. It just kind of depends, right? So we just took these data points and graphed them. This is called do we remember what this is called? Ooh, a scatter plot. Yes, somebody had an 8th grade teacher that did their job.
Nope.
Great.
I had a
Okay.
6th grade teacher that did her job.
This is called all right, scatter plot, because the data obviously looks a little scattered, right? It's going to look like that because in real life, the data doesn't ever make a straight line, right? Like there are some people that, like I might study for an hour, Siri might study for an hour, but she could get a higher grade than me, right? Like the data isn't going to make like a perfect straight line. As evidenced in this example, right? You can tell that there's a trend, like this kid who didn't study at all got a 75. This kid who studied more obviously did better. So you can tell there's a relationship there, but it's not going to line in a straight line, right? Well, your graphing calculator does this really super cool trick where it literally measures the distance between all the coordinates, and it can figure out where the middle of that data set is, Anybody remember what this is called? If we remember scatter plots, maybe. Your teacher tell you about this one, the line that goes through the middle of the data? If not, it's okay.
I know what it's called.
It's called a line of best fit. It means, yay. Oh, good. We did it. Okay, good. So this isn't brand new information to you. So long story short, you take real data, you translate it to a graph, figure out where the middle of that data is, and all of that translates into an equation because it's the equation of the line. So if we zoom in, yes, Mikey?
Should it also be like, if Miss Dr. Fraser was saying told us that like there shouldn't be more over or under.
Yes.
Think about that. No.
Miss Faley is completely right. I clearly did a really crappy job when I put my line in there because it definitely does not go through the middle. So yes, you're absolutely right. So it really should be more like that kind of, yeah. I did a real crap job on that. But yes, she is correct. So, I love it when the subjects like overlap. So we went through all that work, collecting data, graphing it, finding a line of best fit, so that we could get an equation that represents that line of best fit. And here's where that actually becomes useful for us. This is what I would like you guys to write down on your dry erase boards, is that equation. The y equals 5.4 times x. So basically what this equation is telling you is that more or less, okay, so y, again, stands for your grade because the grade is the dependent variable. The x represents the hours that you study, right? Because that's the independent variable. So what it's basically saying that for every hour that you study, it gradually should increase by about 5.5 points-ish, okay? So we're gonna use this equation to determine about how long should I study if I wanna get an A. What's the lowest A you can get?
90.
Yes, ma'am, a 90, right? So because a 90 is the lowest grade that I can get and still get an A, I'm gonna replace that Y with a 90. So everybody else do that for me, please, on your dry erase board. So we're gonna rewrite that exact same equation, but now we're gonna use it to figure out how many hours would I have to study in order to get at least a 90. So we've really just got ourselves a two-step equation here. Yes, sir? I'm sorry. It does kind of look wrong because no, that's orange, so it's correct. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you there, bud. But yeah, that does kind of look red. That is orange. Sorry about that. So we are just going to simply solve this equation by isolating x, just like you guys did, yesterday. So, or I guess not yesterday, on our last day that we were here. Yes, sir? Oh, do you need one? Oh, okay, thank you. I'll grab you another one. All right, so it really doesn't matter which one you get rid of first. Personally, I would get rid of that plus 76.4. So how am I going to cancel out a plus 76.4? The opposite of that is going to be, yes, a minus. Because I have a plus 76.4 that I need to cancel out. So the inverse, the opposite, what I want to see everybody writing on their board.
Well, she's like 14.6.
You're close to 14.6. You didn't borrow. You're really close, though. It's almost 14.6. 13.6, yes.
Oh yeah.
Because you would have to borrow from the 9, yeah. So we had to do the same thing to both sides, which you guys already know you do. What I did to one side, I did to the other side. So now I'm going to bring down that 5.4. How am I going to, so is my variable already isolated? No. What do I still need to cancel out? That 5.4, which you're right, which is multiplication, which I'm going to cancel out by doing division.
2.5.
So somebody help me out. Yeah, it's like 10 point something, or no, I mean 2 point something. So 2.52, we'll just round it to 2.5. So if you want to earn an A on your test, you would have to study for approximately 2.5 hours in order to get an A. If you use the trend, if you use the data, if it follows the same pattern from the data we collect. I want to make sure you get out of this. We're just solving two-step equations like you guys were doing, okay? We're obviously using more complicated numbers because real life numbers are messy, okay? Very rarely do you actually have whole numbers in real life. A lot of the time, real life data has a lot to it. It's fractions and decimals and stuff. So I wanted you just to understand, A, you actually can use this stuff for a real purpose, okay? And that frequently that data is messy. Okay, example number 2. You guys can't read this so well, so I'm going to kind of tell you what this little table says. So this says the number of days that you're absent. This is actual real data collected from students from last year about their number of absences and their final grade. Okay?
We literally can't.
So I know, that's why I'm writing it for you so you can see what it says. I know it doesn't, you can't really tell. What's typically probably going to happen the more days you're absent? What's going to happen to your grade? It's more likely to go down, right? So that is why after we graphed it all into a scatter plot, we came up with an equation that has a negative number to go with the x, because that would make sense. If the number of days that you're absent goes up, your grade is, not always, but it's more likely to go down, right? So this, again, is your grade, because your grade depends on how many days you're absent. That's your dependent variable. So what if you're like, man, I hate school. I want to come the bare minimum, the only number of days, so I'm going to miss as many days as I possibly can and still get a B. What number is the lowest B you can get? 80. So we're going to solve the equation for that dependent variable. We're going to solve it instead of y equals. We're going to solve it for 80 equals. So we're simply going to replace, who, me? Yeah. 6. Is that why you're asking if I'm okay? I promise I'm not hallucinating. I'm exhausted. I'm not going to lie. Sorry about that. It would help if I wrote the correct equation down. All right. So what is keeping the x from being isolated? What do we need to get rid of, folks? What do I need to get rid of? Okay. So I would start off personally with getting rid of that 89. How am I going to get rid of a plus 89.8? Subtract it. Yes. So I'm going to do minus 89.8. And what I do to one side, say it, say it, say it, say it. I got to do the other side. All right, so that's going to cancel. This is going to leave me with a negative 0.97x. And then over here on this side, 80 minus 89.8. Somebody make sure, because I'm already being stupid today. What is that? Negative 9.8, right? Yeah, we'll wait to round until the end, but yes. I need to get rid of. What's the last thing I need to get rid of? That negative 0.97, right? How am I going, hold on one second. How am I going to get rid of that? What am I going to do? Divide. All right, so that cancels, leaves me with an x. What I do on one side, I have to do on the other side. I know it's going to be like 10 point something. What is it? 10 point what? 10.2? That's fine. 10.2-ish. I didn't specify how to round. So that means you can miss 10 days and maybe a few minutes of another class. Okay, so where did I get the 80 from? Because it's asking, hold on guys. It says to earn at least a B. And what is a B? An 80.
So all the questions will be something.
All the questions are going to be something similar to that. You're going to be given the equation, and it's going to ask you what would the value of X need to be in order to get that specific outcome. So basically, you're going to take the question or the number in the question, and you're always going to substitute it for Y. You're trying to figure out what value of X would give you that value for Y. So you're not really learning anything new, except for the fact that you really can't actually use this stuff in real life. But the actual mechanics of solving it are the same.